The book of Genesis in the Bible starts right off with two variations of a creation story. Right there. They don't even sound the same. There are some other anomalies in the Bible later on that people look at and say, why is this? There's a lot of explanations as to why. And a Christian will say these are just different variations, different stories telling the same thing, containing more elements. I'm going to tell you that I have found a way to isolate the first creation story. And when we get to the flood, there's two sections in there where Noah and his family are told two different ways to get on the boat and what to bring with them and close up and the storm begins. That the first one of those belongs to the first creation story. Those link, those match. I'm going to show you how in this video. My name is Dan Paulson. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, this is complicated, so we can't just jump right into it. We have to do a little bit of groundwork. If it was easy to see, we'd all see it already. Yeah, there's some groundwork. And what this entails is this. There is a lot of commonalities between material from antiquity. If you read a lot of stuff, you begin to see those. If you don't read a lot of stuff, you won't see them. It's just that simple. The more things you're open to, I'm going to read Jesus. I'm going to read, some Greek stuff. I'm going to read Homer and, the Argonautica. I'm going to read Hindu materials, Buddhist materials. Once you start doing things like that, you begin looking at things and going, wait a minute. There is something here that is much bigger than what meets the eye. What is that? So I've approached it open-mindedly. What is in this material? I'm not going to shut it down. I don't believe what it is. I believe it's a carrier vehicle. There's a package that's got something inside of it because there's a template in there. I've chased that template obsessively, and that is where it leads me to here. A part of the template is what we know of today as the monomyth, the hero of 1,000 faces, but that's only part of it. There's another part of the template that was not identified in the monomyth that is a personal creation story. The monomyth itself is a self-healing path. We turn inward, we go defeat our demons. So ultimately for me, as I'm learning what this monomyth is and how to play it out and how to understand it conceptually, pretty soon it begins to emerge that to me, the Bible is a monomyth network. People after people after people being chosen, going back, defeating something, taking over something, drowning something out. It's very much there as a monomyth package, except for if you keep going upstream, the first monomyth starts when Noah is called. Before that, there's no calling. The calling is the first step in the monomyth. So there's something else happening that precedes the very first calling, and that is creation up to that point. And that is the area that I've been focused on, this area that doesn't fit in with the monomyth network. But without it, the monomyth is, we're not going to understand how it plays out conceptually in the psyche without this lead part into it. Why does it look the way it is? First of all, let me pull something up here. And I'll be using the NRSV Bible for translations. I always use that. But I pop this up here. You see Genesis 1, chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth. Verse 2. The earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. Verse 3. Then God said, let there be light, and there was light. Verse 4. Do you see how we're structuring along like that? I'm going to tell you what, I don't like that. It was not meant to be that way. Where did this come from? Okay, a quick search right here shows me what I need to find. When the books of the Bible were originally written, they did not contain chapters or verse references. The Bible was divided into chapters and verses to help us find scriptures more quickly and easily. It is much easier to find John chapter 3, verse 16, than it is to find For God so loved the world. In a few places, chapter breaks are poorly placed, and as a result divide content that should flow together. Overall, though, the chapter and verse divisions are very helpful. The chapter divisions commonly used today were developed by Stephen Langton, the Archbishop of Canterbury. Langton put the modern chapter divisions into place in around AD 1227. The Wycliffe English Bible of 1382 was the first Bible to use this chapter pattern. Since the Wycliffe Bible, nearly all Bible translations have followed Langton's chapter division. Okay, let's extract that. Let's get rid of the Bible divisions and let me take a look at something and show you something else here. Now, first of all, as we do this, I want to draw your attention to something here. That as we look at Genesis and the way it's structured to begin with, I'm going to add some things in that are not put in the Bible, but this is what they are. They are located in the NRSV. For example, Genesis 1, that's a first creation story. Now, if we were to continue to move down here, we get to chapter 2. Chapter 2 actually is where day 6 is complete and day 7 is about to emerge. It's right in between there. Let's move on. Genesis 3, first sin. Genesis 4, Cain murders Abel. Genesis 5, Adam's descendants to Noah. Genesis 6, the wickedness of humankind. Genesis 7, the great flood. Genesis 8, the flood subsides. Genesis 9, the covenant with Noah. That really sounds structured on those chapters, that something is starting different, except for Genesis 2. What is going on here? Genesis 2. Day 6 is complete. If we were to come down here, can you see this? Genesis 2, verse 4. These are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created. In the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens, when no plant of the field. You know what? Right there is where the break is supposed to be. Look at this right here. What are they doing? This is chapter 2 right here. Second creation account. You see that? That's the one that right there breaks up everything like everything else. This is what happens first creation, second creation, then sin, then etc. It sequences. But that one place right there, remember in the first part it said that the breaks aren't always okay. But you look at that one and I wonder about that one and I think, why is that? They look perfect. Remember, this was done by a Christian clergy later on. Is there an intended purpose in separating those two creation stories or making them flow in a way that it's harder to see what's going on there? Okay, that having been said, here's what I do instead. I just get rid of everything that the Christians put in. I'm going to go upstream. I want to know as close as I can. I'm stuck with English, but I want to know as close as I can what they are trying to convey to me. So let's restructure it, get rid of the chapters and the verses and do this. Okay, how different does this look than biblical text? Got the first creation story, and then it's going to go, this is the first day right here. It's not broken down any further, and that's okay. I don't need to reference anything. Those verses are there, they're fine, but to research it, I think we need to try and look at something in a different way. So in the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while the wind from God swept over the face of the waters. I would actually further subdivide that. That's not telling me anything. That's not giving me an instruction. Then God said, let there be light. There's an instruction. And there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, the darkness he called night. And there was evening and there was morning the first day. That's it right there. But that's the first section, and it's easier to see it that way. Then you see day 2, day 3, day 4. It's broken down, and you can actually read it, I think, in a way that for me mentally just seems more, I don't know, in accordance with the way the mind works, the way we spot templates. I think humans are good at spotting patterns. I'm sure that's how they saw this back then. They figured this out because they had a lot of time on their hands and they observed it. We can still observe it, and it's written in a way to see it that way, but later versions kind of obscure that. Whether that's intentional or somebody just didn't know, or it's just part of I don't know. The thing is, what we need to do is return to a format like this, reading it in such a way that we're seeing each chunk and step at a time, and we can isolate it. I'm not looking at these as historical. These are metaphoric stories, like a fable would be, carrying a message in there for me, and I need to know what that message is. So this helps me put it into a group. If I want to hear about the tortoise and the hare, I want to make sure that I don't read the tortoise and the hare and the dog and the manger both together. I want them separated so I can see that they're containing something different. I'm talking about Aesop's fables there. But this would be the same sort of thing. We're looking at a nugget of teaching inside of these. That's where I've come to. So at any rate, that's how I want to restructure it to begin with. That's going to help. Now, in doing so, what does that provide for us? One of the first things, if we're on board with what this monomyth template is, we realize that one of the very first things, the first step that is in there is that there is a calling, that there is a selection process somehow, that someone is very specifically selected. And as you go through this Hebrew and just all of this material back there, the way they're doing callings are pretty simple. Let's take a look at what this looks like right here. First of all, this is part of the story in Genesis where we're getting down to the wickedness of mankind, it says there. This is when we're getting ready to have the flood. And the first thing happens, Noah pleases God. This starts the first monomyth template right here. We become Noah if we awaken to the material and its path and choose to turn inward with it. This part right here, Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God. Right there is the calling. That is exactly the calling. And you will see at the start of every monomyth, or at many, many Jewish monomyths, something very similar, whoever it is. You know, Isaiah or somebody somewhere, they're righteous, they're somehow called. Okay. That is how you spot the beginning of the monomyth. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight, and the earth was filled with violence. So this whole thing has happened where the earth has gone bad, and he's telling Noah how to take care of it, make the ark, the size of it. The entire story is there. They're getting on board the ark. God is telling him he's going to destroy everything that is there, but he's going to establish a covenant with them. And they're going to bring 2 of everything into the ark, the birds according to their God. It looks like they've got it covered here. Noah did this in all that God commanded him. Now, if we look right here, I've got this highlighted in a different color. What I want you to notice, first of all, then the Lord said to Noah, "Go into the ark, you and all your household, for I have seen that you alone are righteous before me in this generation." That is a calling right at the beginning. This story and this story are not, they don't flow together. They're parallel stories. They could replace each other. However, something that becomes very clear is if you were to take that first story right there and you just take out the second one completely and you read it straight through, it's a very cohesive flow. The story sounds like you're reading the same author all the way through. If you were to take the first version out, these are the descendants of Noah at that first calling, all the way down to this point right here, and then put in the second calling, you would have slightly different information. You would still have the calling. It would still be on the template. The numbers are being used differently. It is still covering much information, but it no longer flows. It is an add-in. But you know what? Let's leave that for a minute and come back to it, because there's a place where it leads into. What I want to do right now is go to the first creation story. Let's go take a look at that and see what we come up with right here in the first creation story. If I bring it up, one of the things I did here after sectioning all out, I'm looking at things and seeing numbers and seeing things are going at different places. I won't do the interpretation here. I'm just going to show this part. I come over here into my find bar in the navigation, and I'm curious about 7 because 7 seems to be very consistent as a number in the Bible, and I think that it first appears here on day 7, and that translates to something specific in my own interpretation work. Let's see what we have here. I'm going to type in 7, and it comes up and tells me there are 24 results. And the first of them we see right here are in that first Genesis creation account. It is the 7-day creation. In fact, they go so far it almost sounds weird to me that they say it so much. It's like it's kind of like that teacher in class that's tapping their foot when they're putting an answer on the board, so you know that's coming up on the test. And on the 7th day, God finished the work that he had done, and he rested on the 7th day from all the work that he had done. So God blessed the 7th day and hallowed it, because on it God rested from all the work that he had done in creation. I'm surprised he didn't say 7th day. one 7-day again. Anyway, that it seems very deliberate, but that in a culture, number one, that's going to be an incredibly important thing for the culture, because that gives them a day where they're supposed to go learn all about God and all of this. This is a part of the culture, the carrying case, that is going to be very important for a growing society. But there's something nested in here. There's something inside of this. So I go look for the rest of the sevens, looking for habits of storytelling. Second creation story, nothing. First sin and its punishment, nothing. Cain murders Abel. Down at the bottom, we get a sevenfold vengeance thing that's a little, I'm not quite sure what that is. I want to point that out, though. I don't want to try to hide that. There's something there that is a sevenfold. That happens 2 times. So there's a couple of sevens that appear, but they're both sevenfold. They sound a little bit different. I don't know what to make of those. All of the other sevens that are in here they're not really sevens. They're multiple numbers, like 807 or 70, 782, 777. When we really see sevens that we keep going through here, it doesn't appear. There's the first story. What we do when we get to this add-in, what appears to be an add-in creation story, the one that sounds different, that has the sevens in it, bingo, that's where it pops up. And it sounds the same as the first creation story. Take with you 7 pairs of all clean animals, the male and its mate. This is right after creation, when all of the animals were made already. What would be 7 pairs? There's a spiritual reason for that number. 7 in... let me get this turned off here. 7 in my interpretation work is a point that the creation story is about the creation of a human being, and that 7 represents that point in time in life. If you look at that, naked, unashamed in the garden, man and wife, that is conscious, subconscious, self-aware at a point in time in life where we are just happy-go-lucky. We're not attached to the world. We're not connected to all the things that are going on. As we go through life, we get that connection. Later on, we're looking to, if we become called, then we're going to be the person who goes on this journey, gathers up the things necessary, and purges out what is there. We're going to resolve things. So the sevens are there to encode the idea that you're going to bring something with you on the other side of this. You still want your good qualities, male and female, the duality there, but the 7 represents this time where that's when you're pure. That's before you were judgment. That would fit right there. If it interprets that way, and if you look at it and analyze it that way, suddenly I see something that was put in there that is actually, and this will be on other videos I have, but there's actually different information in both of those creation stories that are necessary to go on an inner path. And if without the addition, those wouldn't be there. The additions look like a kludge. They look like, some people will explain them as just alternate accounts, but they're actually carrying different spiritual lessons. Anyway, I just wanted to say that. Picking Genesis apart, seeing what it is, understanding that template more and more, and having fun with it. So in summary, what have we talked about? Number 1 is that the chapter breaks were put in a very strange way. That one between the first creation and the second creation story not only didn't separate the creation stories, day 6 and day 7, but where the actual next creation story did start was in the middle of verse 4, not even at the end of a verse. Well, meanwhile, everything else is straight. That looks very strange to me. Yeah, that's going to catch my attention as, you were very accurate except for that one part where it looks like you purposefully tried to hide it. Maybe, maybe not. It just looks that way. I knew what he was doing. How come not there? Okay, the 2 stories match each other in style. If you were to read them long enough, you would go, boy, that really sounds different. Creation 1 sounds different than Creation 2, the sin, all that kind of stuff. They have a kind of a darker style to them. And there's something a little more flowery about the other 2. It's got different verbiage. It sounds a little bit different. So you know it's a different author, or at least a different time. But the 2 match each other, and they carry information that is necessary for the spiritual search. In the flood story, each one of them is a side by side. Here, let's redo this calling and put these things in instead. We've added that in at the beginning to make sure it goes along with the Genesis story. It makes the religion look a little... Yeah, we got some odd things going on there right in the beginning, but you can see what they are. Don't you think so? I do. Here, let's look again at this real quick. This Genesis part right here, the Genesis flood, when it says, "Then the Lord said to Noah, go into the ark and all of your household," all the way down here to where it says the rain fell on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. Just completely take that out. And the very first creation story, completely take that out. Read from second creation on through, and you will find that it is a completely cohesive story. There's no jump. There's nothing in there. These are added in that make it look odd. These are the ones that have been added in. Why would that be? They're added in to add in the sevens and the pairs and to let us know to bring purity. There's probably a little bit more to it. Oh, there is considerable work also on the analogues. It actually creates more conditions. Yeah, there's more to it. Again, other material, so I'll let it go at that point. The monomyth is key. You'd have to know how to interpret them now in the psyche, which is the rest of my channel. But in this case, I just wanted to point that out because I think a lot of people that see that would realize, oh, okay, yeah, I see what you're doing there, and I get it. The other sevens, the sevenfold, I'm still looking at that. I'm not quite sure on. But, the other ones where it shows up, it just, the way it sounds, the way they're both added in, the way that it looked like it was obscured, all of it points to the idea that those two actually fit together. I think that's not just one line of evidence. There's a number of things there that point to it that way. And when I interpret it in the psyche in a way that would be a spiritual search, there's a really solid line of evidence to me right there. That's probably a little harder to see. Anyway, that's my other material. Hope this was fun and interesting. I'm finding the templates in Genesis. How fun. Love one another. See you in the next video.